Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Let me share my screen. I apologize. There we go. Hopefully everyone can see the title slide now. GoToMeeting is
Yes.
unfamiliar to me a little bit, so I have to find the menu button. Like all of us in technology, they move it around on you. So I am Jennifer Sample, and today we're going to talk about the importance of document management for projects. And this pertains primarily to higher education facilities and operations groups. I specialize in document management solutions for that particular market, but some of these topics could be applicable to everyone who manages a facility and keeps records of project-related documents. With that, we'll get started. We're going to cover some basic points here of what document management is. We're going to talk about some challenges that are commonly heard in the projects group specifically. Again, everyone has the same challenges, but for projects, it may be a little bit different. We're going to talk about solutions to these challenges and how document management systems such as Meridian can solve them. And then we're going to talk about the overall benefits and have a Q&A. So what is document management? This is a great graphic that kind of captures the keywords everybody thinks of with document management, but it really is a safety net too. It can be an archive, it can be a working system, it can be many, many things to many people. For the projects groups, it gives you a repository primarily. It gives you a way to store your documents consistently, securely, with descriptive data, so everyone can find them quickly and easily. That is the basic concept of a document management system. The other aspect of it is a workflow. It gives you a way to control the way the documents flow through the organization. You can have approvers, you can have gatekeepers for certain types of documents. You can set it up to do email notifications when a document is updated or changed or saved. You can also track where the documents are in the process. If you do concurrent engineering, this becomes critical. And this is so that everyone knows the status of the documents, and it keeps the complete history of those documents. It's preserved, so it becomes kind of an archive. Those are the two main things that a document management system does. A broader overview of how a document management system really works with the projects group is the three buckets of documents. Every document that comes into a facilities, campus planning group, project group, maintenance group, falls into three buckets. You have your project area, which is where the project documents are stored. That is an effort that has a start and an end, and as soon as it's over, those documents are becoming stale. So it is really a point in time type area in an archive sense. But as for your working documents, it can keep the current versions of everything. So that's where these project-specific topics kind of reside for this presentation. The other areas are critical to that project because you have the master building area. This is more of an operational type document area where you keep master floor plans, for example, of how it currently looks on campus. These are primarily used for space planning or to start a project, to keep space allocations is the common use for this. But this is something that you're committed to maintaining as a facilities organization. It doesn't change as often as you think, but it does change with every project effort. If a project removed a wall, that master building floor plan gets updated at the end. So that's what this kind of bucket is. It's an isolated current as is record of the document for the building or the campus. The other area of the bucket pool, so to speak, is your templates, standards, and processes. This is how you do business. It's not tied to a project. It's not tied to a building. It's not tied to an asset. It is how you do business. Templates are common for projects. Most project groups have common contract templates or RFI templates or transmittals. This is a secure place where you can keep the latest and greatest template for a project. That's why this kind of all mingles together. You can't talk about document management specific to projects without talking about these other two groups. And this illustrates the point. You have a master file, a building floor plan, and you have a customer that wants to do a remodel of a couple labs on campus, or assembly lines if you are in the manufacturing industry. Let's speak to those people that might be on this call. But you take that master floor plan and you make a copy and you put it in your project file. And this is primarily at the time just for a schematic to kind of see what's happening. Then you start your design process and work with maybe an AE firm or an engineering firm outside of your company, or you do it in-house. But you keep a record of those things. And so when you do this design, you may need that standard contract for an AE that you pull out of the templates folder, not literally. You make a copy, put it in your project folder, so you know it's the latest and greatest. Then you go through construction and you do all of those things. And all along the way, you may need other templates and standard contracts or routing forms, whatever your company or facilities group uses. But you go through construction, and that's where most of the documents come into the organization during the process. For a big capital construction project, such as a new building, you're going to have schedules, you're going to have meeting agendas and minutes, RFIs, submittals, all your drawings that come in for review. You're going to have all those documents. And that's where these live, because at the point in time, your DDs, your CDs, your bid sets all stay in there. When construction's concluded, the closeout documents come in, also part of the project, that point in time. But sometimes those things need to make changes to the master floor plan, or in case of a new building, you create new ones. And along the way, you might have come across some changes that need to be made in your language on a contract, or a checkbox for a new task on a template checklist for someone. Things that need to change might affect from the project to those masters or standards and templates. And this process just keeps continuing for every project. And over time, you have a project archive in that project area. So there's no need to duplicate and save move it off to another place. It's all right there. Looks like you've been doing it forever for your projects. So some of the common challenges. There's lots of challenges in a project world. There's tons of project management issues that concern people, but one of the ones is the reliability of your documents, and that's where document management comes in to help solve those problems. Some of the commonly heard questions or comments/issues that I've come across in my life, as well as other people that now work here at Hagerman. Where did I put that document, and what's the file name? I can't seem to find it. This happens to everyone. Emails are flying around with attachments, and people drag them onto their desktop, or they put it in a project folder, but they name it something not quite to the standard file naming convention you may or may not have. There's the other key. And then nobody can find it again, and they have to keep asking you where it is. Or errors happen, and you drag and drop in a Windows scenario, and it magically appears in another folder where you thought you put it in the right one. Just human error, but people wondering where things are. Common concern. Why are there multiple copies, and which one is the most current? This happens on projects the most because more than one person might be copied on an email, and they might be saving the same copy of the document in the same folder, but naming it slightly different. Or they're not in the same folder. They're in 5 different folders, but nobody seems to know what the most current is. Simply based on the file date is not enough, because if someone opened it and hit save, then your file date's changed. So that one looks like it might be the most current, but it may not be. This comes in to play sometimes in the contract world and the contract documents, such as construction drawings, where there's been 5 different revisions, but the file name maybe didn't change. There is a common problem with multiple copies. Who made a change to this contract or drawing, etc.? So you're the project manager, you're managing this contract, and you typed it out, you made the changes, you sent it off to the AE or the contractor, but the next time you opened it on your copy, there were changes. Well, sometimes you can tell who made the changes, but if they didn't save a copy of the prior change, you can't find it again. So there's the other piece of who made the change and how do I get the other one back if the change is wrong. If I can't find it here, I need to look where, and why isn't it all in one place? This is a common thing when someone's looking for archival information that pertains to a new project. So you have a project that's in a building, and you want to find out what changes were made to the electrical in a certain area from the last project. Well, that might be easy enough because it is that last project, but maybe that last project didn't touch the plumbing and you also need the plumbing. So if you need to look in 4 different places for the latest and greatest, instead of simply searching for it and finding it all in one place, that's a major problem. So how do we solve these problems? Yes, you can have all the standards in the world. Written human standards are great. Adhering to them is not always happening. I worked for CU Boulder in the facilities construction group for years, and we had many standards. We had folder naming standards, file naming standards, when you save something, where it needs to live, templates in there, and most of the time it worked well, but there was always those rogue people that want to change things themselves. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about the current issue using a standard folder structure, Windows folder structure, and then how Meridian as a document management solution really helps fix those. Your current issue, limited searchable data. That goes back to the I can't find it. I don't know where you put it. Well, with Meridian, every document has searchable metadata. And that metadata is also leveraging data from other systems of record. So just because you don't know the project number doesn't mean you can't find the information for that project. We leverage the data from your asset management system. So if you're in the ops group and you need information on a project pertaining to a piece of equipment, you could do a search and see if there's any documents for that piece of equipment, such as a submittal. That's kind of important, or an RFI. We can also leverage data from project lists. If you have a project management system that manages project lists and descriptions and project managers and start dates and statuses, we can leverage that data and tag that to the document as well, so that you can easily find it by, say, project manager. We can also leverage data from actual project management systems, such as eBuilder or Unifier. It goes on, the list goes on, but there's lots of searchable metadata that gets attached to every document. Another current issue, user-defined file names. This goes back to the searchable metadata. When we do the metadata, we also go through and do a standardized file naming based on the metadata most times. Sometimes we have a customer that wants their own name, which is fine, but the file name becomes less important in the case of all the metadata. The file name is what most people search on for documents currently in their system. Well, the file name becomes so unimportant in Meridian that the standardized file name means something to us, but not always to others, and that's kind of the beauty of the system. Another issue, a user-defined folder structure. This becomes irrelevant as well in Meridian, but your user-defined folder structure is simply the Windows folder structure. Now, when I was at CU Boulder, we created a standard template for a new project that had all the folders they would need. Well, you don't always need all those folders for a smaller project, so people would have to go through and delete them. Or they would just be empty folders, or they would put the wrong thing in the wrong folder. With Meridian, instead of a folder structure, we use flexible navigation views. We base these views off of the metadata that's attached to all the documents. So you can change your views to have a virtual folder structure in many ways. You could have it say, you could organize one by project manager, you could organize another view by building, so it would show by building first, then by project, then by project manager, and so forth. Possibilities really are endless and very flexible to meet your business needs. Version control by file naming and saving copies. This is that multiple copies of something, or you have revision 1, revision 2, revision 3, revision 4, so on and so forth, multiple copies in the system all in a row, and you have to read the file name in order to get that revision number. Meridian has integrated version control. So when you save the first document into Meridian, it's version 0. When someone then opens that document to make a change or work on it and saves it back into the system, it becomes version number 2, and so on and so forth. But there's no renaming, there's no saving a copy. The copies are still there because they do keep them, so you can always revert back to the previous revision. That is way better than a folder issue where you have the old one saved somewhere else, a new copy, but nobody can find the old one. Changes happen, weren't approved, but what happened to the last one? And you may have to go back to an archive or a backup disk, excuse me, not an archive, a backup disk to find the previous version, and it probably wiped out all the changes that really needed to happen. Your folder structures really have no workflow. Yeah, there's some ways you can make workflow happen with Windows folders, but sometimes it's pretty time consuming, and with the way people manage their own folders, that might get modified inadvertently. In Meridian, we can do a configurable workflow for things like RFIs or submittals. If you have an internal checks and balances system for when a submittal comes in, you can always save it in the system. We can set up a configurable workflow that then the approver, reviewer, approver of that document is then notified that it's there, and they can go review it and send it back into the system if it's incorrect. There's many ways to do a configurable workflow in Meridian. A lot of times it's drawing specific, but I can see a need in the projects realm for some of these other things for checks and balances, such as your project coordinator or project admin starts the contract, saves it in Meridian, it sends you a notification as the project manager to review the contract prior to the admin sending the contract out. There's a common workflow that could happen in a project. In standard folder structure, this usually happens. They have an archive area. So they have an active and an archive. And you have to manually cut and paste or drag and drop those files over into the archive space and hope that you got them all, there's no errors, and that there's space. In Meridian, it is the archive. There's no need to move anything from anywhere. When a project is closed, the status is updated via some other tools in the background based on where you manage that status, and it becomes the archive. So those flexible navigation views also become important when you want to look for closed projects. You can have a navigation view that shows it by the status. So you can look for closed projects by building, by project manager, by the year, Whatever data you tag on the documents, you can search on and make a navigation view, and it retains it as the archive. We've also had customers that have been using Meridian for so long that this becomes their archive for past projects as well, and that's a migration task, but it really did benefit them to pull in a lot of project data. For instance, when they get audited by the state, they can now find everything they need on that project quickly, efficiently, saves money. The other issue with using a standard folder structure really is the limited accessibility. A lot of times you're on your desktop working, and so you can easily access your file shares and the servers. Sometimes you're on a remote site using your iPad or a tablet or your phone, and you want to find the documents because you're having this conversation on site with about your project, like, no, the latest drawing moved the door 4 feet to the left. Well, to prove that, you need to go find the drawings. So unless you're carrying the drawings around, and yes, the contractor should have them on site, I will address that here, that yes, they should have those on site, but sometimes they don't. In order for you to find that document, you'd have to find a computer, log in, probably remote into somewhere, VPN in, who knows, to get to that folder. Whereas with our solution, it's web and mobile access ready. There's 3 parts to it, and then we can do 2 other pieces to do the web access or mobile access to be able to search in the field and on the fly. So that those documents that are created by a project, such as an O&M manual, can easily be found by the people that need those O&M manuals later in the field. The list could go on, but we'll talk about the overall benefits of using a document management system for your projects specifically here next. It creates one location. You have one document, a single source of truth. This goes back to that many copy, many different places, people not knowing which one's right. The document management system forces your organization to have a single point of truth for every document in the system. O&M manuals, warranties, drawings, everything. So that everyone that needs the documentation, the consumers, can easily find them via those tools. When we leverage other applications, such as your IWMS systems, project management, CMMS, GIS, and CAFM systems, everything is seamless. The same wording is used everywhere. We use the same linguistics, the same terminology to make it match as seamless as possible with the systems you already have in place. And this allows better communication between those other groups that manage those systems to understand how the documents are being tagged and how they can leverage the data from within those systems as well. The real-time collaboration through the document accessibility is paramount. Everyone can see the document any point in time, so they can actually talk about those submittals that came in. And with the workflow, you can even notify people. So there is a little bit of collaboration that happens. It makes it a little more seamless to find the latest and greatest when you want to talk about maybe making a master change to a template or a contract. Everyone sees the latest and greatest, and therefore they can collaborate on the same document. One of the biggest advantages of a document management system is saving time and money. It saves so much time and money to do your projects, to save your project documentation in Meridian, not only for you as a project manager or a project coordinator, or even a high-level administrator, it saves the operations and maintenance folks time when they need to find the O&M manual for a piece of equipment. They can easily find it in the field. It saves them from having to be out there looking at a piece of equipment, write down the equipment number, go back to the office, try to find the actual O&M, which sometimes never gets transferred over to that department. They can easily find it in the document management system instead. The project manager saves all the closeout documents, and it's there for everyone to find. It also saves time and money on errors that happen when you have those multiple copies saved everywhere and you're not sure who changed what. Sometimes those errors can be avoided simply by having a reliable version control in your document management system. Now, this is not a project management system. We don't keep track of scheduling or tasks. It's simply document management, but it can improve your project management system in many, many ways. So if there's any questions, or if I went too fast and you'd like me to readdress something, please let me know in the chat box for the question. Is it compatible with Archibus? Yes, we integrate with Archibus all the time. Many universities use Archibus as their space management tool, and so we really use that master's floor plan type idea to integrate with Archibus and then pull the space information out of Archibus in order for us to tag the documents with the building name, building number, room numbers, floors, anything that's available in Archibus that you want to tag on the document. Are there a lot of download and upload? For example, if you are filling out a template, do you have to save elsewhere, fill it out, then upload? No. If your template is in Meridian, in that bucket in Meridian, you can do a copy to project function, and you can copy it to the project, and it will fill out some of the metadata on that project as well, and then you work on that document within the project. So there's no more downloading a copy and uploading a copy in that regard. Does Meridian support document retention control? Yes. We are working on that with a couple universities. Right now, nobody's really implemented it on the university side because I know that document retention is really important, and some states you have to keep everything anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yes, it does have document retention control capability. Is it all modules of Archibus, specifically project management module? I'm not as familiar with all the modules of Archibus, but it's if they have an open API that we talk to leverage information, it can be those other pieces as well. So if you use Archibus as your project management tool and you're creating your project numbers, descriptions there, we can leverage that data as well. Did that answer that question? I hope so. Good question. Hopefully I asked them. Is there a storage size limitation? Storage size. Yes, there is a storage size limit, like any tool. Overall, it's an on-premise solution right now, so it is a little bit limited on your total size capabilities, whatever hard drive you buy. But there are a few file size limits, but they're giant. I wouldn't be able to save a large video. I don't have the exact data off the top of my head. I can get that to you if you like. Are there any other questions or possible concerns that have come up in your organization that I may or may not be able to help answer? What other systems do you integrate to besides Archibus GIS? We integrate with a lot of systems. We work with AssetWorks, Famous. We're working on Unifier, eBuilder. There's so many to talk about, and yes, GIS. GIS systems. We have a link with Munsys. CU Boulder uses Esri and Munsys, so we do work with GIS integrations as well. We have a couple customers that have a really slick GIS map that you can do a query from there and it searches in Meridian, so it's pretty handy. So not a cloud solution. So this product, Meridian, has a cloud solution, but unfortunately we have some configurable add-on products that work well for university facilities groups that don't quite play well with the cloud yet. We are working on that internally to hopefully get to that solution. But for now, it's an on-premise, and we found that a lot of universities shy away from the cloud when their security protocols indicate that it's not the best idea. So we're working on that In the future, it may become a cloud solution, but for now it's on-premise. Is Meridian Cloud compatible buckets in the cloud? I think I answered that a little bit. Are there any other questions on the product specifically? Or if I need to re-answer one, please let me know if I didn't sufficiently answer your question. Not yet? I know you have to type it, so I'm giving you a few minutes in case you think of anything else. All right, well, I don't think there's any more questions. So lastly, if you want a demo, if you want to see how this can actually work, if you want to see it in action and get your questions answered on a real example type scenario, which I have tons of them, here's our contact information. You start with Melanie Kretschmar. She's the account manager for higher education and facilities, and she'll set something up and answer some more of your questions. And then, of course, my name is Jennifer Sample, and I'm the technical solutions consultant. So if they're technical questions, Mel and I work together and we come up with your answers, but a demo really shows this well. So if you would like one, please schedule one. We love to do them, and we love to share this information with everyone. With that, I will hand it back over to Ashley.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer. Thank you. This will conclude our broadcast. If you think of additional questions, like she mentioned, just email these folks here. Once again, if you could take a few moments to answer the short survey, we would appreciate it. It will just pop up as we close down today. And again, thanks for attending, everybody, and have a great day.